welcome to the Egyptian American Organization first event of 2022. My name is Sausan Andrawes and I'm the Program Committee Chair for the 2022 board year. I'm excited to be serving on the board for the first year, and I'm looking forward to meeting many of you at future events in person. While I'm an engineer by profession, my role on the board is to bring events and activities to life with the help of the board members and the community. Our theme this year is centered towards the arts, and there was no better person to start us off this year and also help us to celebrate the Women's History Month than our featured panelist, Miss Shereen Ahmed. She is the first Egyptian woman to play a main role on the Broadway show My Fair Lady. So on behalf of the EAO, I would like to thank you for joining our event today, and you are in for a treat. And now I'll hand it over to Amani Gobran, the membership chair, to introduce herself.
Thank you, Sausan. It's been a true honor to be part of this board and learn from the very distinguished board members and the founders for the organization. This is my first year being on the board, and I am privileged to be part of it and to learn from the highly experienced team under Essraa Nawar dynamic leadership. I thought I am energetic until I met Essraa. She is on fire. Thank you, Essraa, for being such a great example for all of us. As a new membership committee chair, my focus will be on promoting the organization and emphasizing its great roles and its impact on the Egyptian American community. In doing so, I will lead the recruitment of new members, facilitate the membership applications, and the new membership participations in the organization's activities, and much more. I would like to encourage you all to visit our Facebook page to learn more about our organization and its very rich history that comes from the well-seasoned and knowledgeable and very wise members for this organization. Now I would like to encourage the young people, the second generation, to join our group and our organization, to learn from the people who've been here for so many years, and also to get equipped and ready to carry the responsibility one day when we get old. Also, I would like to let you know that we do have a one-page application that I'll be more than happy to send to you, either via email or text. And we have the PDF form, and also we have the digital form, thanks for the technology nowadays. I would like for you all to fill out this one-page application and join us so that we can grow together. There's a small fee though for the application, and that's what we're gonna use to enhance the different activities throughout the year. I'd like to announce about our very first big in-person event, yay, finally, which is gonna be Sham al-Nassim. The date for it will be in May 7th, and we will announce about the tickets and the prices later on the social media very soon. I hope to see you all there, and we will have a big fun day. And yes, we will color eggs and we will have face painting, all kind of fun stuff. You can reach out to me or to any other board member for any question you have regarding membership or any other related questions. Thank you very much for allowing me to introduce myself to you. And now I would like to introduce our President and Chair, Essraa Nawar. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Essraa Nawar, and I am the chair of the Egyptian American organization for the year 2022. And it is my absolute pleasure to welcome all of you to our first event of 2022. And there's actually no better person to start us off than Shereen Ahmed. But before I get to introduce Shereen, I want to make sure that I thank all the board members. I hope you got a chance to actually see them all in the slideshow that was playing before the event. We're all standing on the shoulders of giants. And really our goal is to bridge the gap between generations and professions. This year, we're dedicating it to the arts. And this month is the Women International Month. And we're very excited to have Shereen Ahmed with us. Shereen, I've watched many of your interviews, and my goal today is to make this as unique as possible, not only because this is your first interview with an Egyptian organization, but because I'm a storyteller, and I like to ask questions that encourages people to tell their stories. Just really quick, I know it could take us hours to talk about your bio, but just to kind of get everybody started about your background, Shereen Ahmed is one of Broadway's most notable rising stars. After her groundbreaking debut, Shereen has been recognized as the first woman of color to play Eliza Doolittle in Broadway and West End history. She was recently seen on NBC's hit show, New Amsterdam. And I actually didn't know that part, and I was just, went back and I was so excited to know about this. You studied human rights at the Charles University in Prague, and you hold a Bachelor's of Science in Sociology from Towson University. Shereen is currently traveling the country starring as Eliza Doolittle in the first national tour of the Lincoln Center Theater production of My Fair Lady. And I understand you're currently in Connecticut for the start of the part of that tour. So Shereen, welcome. I'm so excited to be conversing with you today. And my first question to you is, how are you?
Thank you, first of all, for having me. This is such an honor to be a part of this month celebrating Women's International History Month and to be talking with you. So thank you. I'm doing well. I'm deep into the tour of My Fair Lady, and I'm really enjoying being back on the stage again and bringing joy to audiences again. We've gone almost 2 years of no live performance, and to be able to sit in a room together and connect it on a beautiful story like My Fair Lady and bring joy to audiences again and to myself and my colleagues, it's a real pleasure and an honor.
I can definitely see that. My family and I go to theater a lot, and we missed it. We definitely missed it. My daughter, we just went and saw Hamilton. Unfortunately, we missed seeing you, but I'm sure we're going to catch you, again when you come to Orange County. But best of luck, and I'm so glad that you're doing well. And thanks for bringing art into our life. We're definitely a family of art, and we love all forms of arts, and I'm so glad to be conversing with you today. Okay, yes, I am hoping to make this as unique as possible, but I need to start with a very cliche question that you probably heard many times. Doctor, engineer, lawyer, professor, those are the typical careers for children of Egyptian American parents. They expect us to pursue these careers, and it looks like from your area of studies, you might have been even thinking about them until you received the blessing from your dad about pursuing your theater career because your heart was there. If you can just spend a few minutes to tell about this journey, and how do your parents feel right now?
I definitely grew up with that sense of you have to be either a doctor, lawyer, engineer, definitely. And yes, I was on that track. I studied criminal justice and I interned at the mental health court in Baltimore City. I was very much on that track. And it wasn't until I studied abroad in Prague that the arts really called to me, because that was the first semester that I didn't participate in any theater.
Mhm.
And although I was studying criminal justice, I was doing community theater on the side. I was taking as many free dance classes and voice lessons as I could, trying to keep arts alive in my heart. And when I didn't have access to it, I realized that this is not just a hobby, it's a passion, and it's something that I must follow. Um, and so, you know, when I brought it to my dad, I graduated and I brought it to my dad that I wanted to be an actor. He gave me his full blessing. And it's funny because we never had a conversation like that before. I just assumed that it would be a struggle. But unfortunately, the Egyptian people are very stubborn and ambitious, and
Yes.
he instilled that very much in me. And when we had that conversation, he was like, he told me that he saw himself in me, and that ambition and stubbornness is actually our strength and one of the most beautiful strengths that we have as a people. And moving forward, he gave me his full support. However, my parents didn't know anything really about what the arts entailed, and it's a tough career choice to go into. But when I made my Broadway debut, my dad was the first person I called, and I said, "Baba, I'm going to be on Broadway." And he said, "Are you going to get paid?" Just had no idea, what
Right.
this world is, but it,
What
it
Broadway
grounded
is.
me. It
Right.
grounded me very much. And I have to say, doing my studies in criminal justice actually informs everything that I do on the stage, because I met people, I heard heartbreaking, incredible stories. And so they inform everything that I do as an actor, and I take that with me.
And I love everything that you said as, career wise and also as a mother. Career wise, I've been, I'm an academic librarian by profession. Even though I do administrative work, part of library administration at Chapman University. But in order to become a librarian, I had to study many things, including a business degree, an MBA, leadership. But just like yourself, every single educational journey that I took actually informed me. So that's something that you and I can maybe pass it forward to others, that you can definitely be something else, but don't regret any other degrees or any other educational journeys that you've been through, because it ends up actually, as you said, informing your career. And one other thing that you said that I want to just reflect on, sometimes our kids, specifically myself, and I'm sure others will relate, assume that we're going to say no. Like my daughter, a lot of the times I'll say, "Why did you not tell me?" And she'll say, "Oh, I thought you're going to say no." Even though I tried to be open and as American as I could. I mean, there's an Egyptian mom sitting inside me all the time, but there's that assumption, that, oh, I'm expected to be for that. So I'm so glad that you had your parents' blessings, and I'm just so excited and proud of you personally. So my second question to you is, just going back to kind of reflecting at my daughter, who's also in the arts. She's only 11, and she seems to be kind of falling in love in the arts every single day. She's an artist, she's an actress, she's a dancer, pianist, and really art seems to be taking over her life, and mine too, as you can imagine. So what did it take to you to become Eliza Doolittle? Maybe you can spend some time, talk to us about your training, your routine, the coaching, the classes, all of that, and what kind of advice that you can give to the younger generation and their parents, who see their kids, that have the passion and perhaps talent in the arts.
Well, my journey is interesting in that I did go to school for criminal justice. I was very much on an academic track. Um, but like I said earlier, on the side, I was taking as much community theater, um, doing as much art as I could, although I didn't have the financial access, and so in college they had, after school programs of free dance classes and voice lessons. And I was also just, hungry for information. And YouTube was just becoming a thing. And so I was constantly on YouTube watching many performances as possible. And that was like my study. And something I try and tell my younger students is that there are teachers all around you.
Mhm.
And especially if you're going to go into the arts, use that. Because if we're going to imitate art on stage, whether it's in music, piano, ballet, painting, it doesn't matter. It imitates the world, and so you must live your life in order to portray that for an audience on stage. Otherwise, it's not true. And
Yes.
so it all informs everything that I've done. There's a lot of my father in Eliza, and for me to get to that point, Eliza's story is really about a woman taking risk in her life and
Mhm.
um, finding the opportunity where there is none.
Mhm.
And my story is very much like Eliza. I walked into an open call, into a room where I didn't necessarily feel invited because I didn't have an agent. I didn't have an appointment. It was very last minute. I had just got off of a cruise ship. And I went, I sang my 16 bars and I left. And I didn't think anything of it other than, wow, I just auditioned for my first Broadway show. And I got a call back and another call back. And I followed my gut and I knew that this was something that I must do. And I booked the job. And to be honest, I wasn't Eliza at that point. I was in the ensemble.
Mhm.
And had I been given Eliza at that moment, I don't think I would have been ready because I was thrown into the deep end with incredible actors and directors and creatives around me. And those were my teachers. So at every moment that I could, I was backstage watching the show, watching them rehearse, watching them fail or learn or discover new opportunities. And so use that to your advantage. And that's the best advice that I can give to the young.
That's a beautiful advice, and just a couple of reflections again, as an academic myself, and when I teach students, and again as a parent, I tell them education comes in many forms. Whether you're watching a YouTube video, that's why when people argue against social media in general, I say there's a lot of great things about social media, YouTube, even TikTok, right? I mean, I learn a lot from YouTube. I mean, I love, moderating panel discussions, for example. And sometimes I feel myself imitating Oprah Winfrey because I love her and I love a lot of her interviews. Just like you said, just watching a lot of things that you're maybe passionate about, whatever is, the journey that you're taking, there's just a lot of content out there. And I tell people all the time, you can't really sit back and say, I don't have the financial resources. Well, pretty much everything is available. Definitely, again, the librarian in me will say verify your sources and make sure that you're looking at credible information. But for the most part, there's a lot of education and modules and free certificates and things that you can definitely look at and learn from. So I'm so glad that you were able to pursue and you know what, your story about just auditioning and getting that role reminds me of a word that I've been using a lot recently is kismet. I mean, it was just meant to be. I mean, you had that passion, you followed it, you were working hard behind the scenes, and you were just meant to be, our first Arab woman to play Eliza Doolittle. I'm just really excited about that story. Um,
I just wanted to follow up on something you said.
please.
I think, we like to think as artists as a separate group of people, but there is so there are so many ways to bring artistry into dentistry, into
Mhm.
being a doctor, into being a teacher, a librarian, and being able to live as a creative just opens so many opportunities for you, regardless if it's on a stage or if it's in a library. And so I think, trying to keep the arts alive as a parent in a child, it just informs such a beautiful creative outlook on life, and it opens so many more opportunities for them as well.
100%. What you said just resonates with me because I've been speaking a lot recently. I would say over the last, even before COVID, for maybe you started that conversation 4 or 5 years ago, because of two reasons. I mean, I've been working as a librarian for the past 12 years at Chapman University, and I happen to also chair the arts exhibits and events committee, where I maybe brought about 55 to 60 events and exhibits specifically to life. And this made me fall in love with the arts and speak about arts and work with artists. I mean, I don't necessarily know much about art like yourself, but it made me curious, which I've also seen how education have changed. I mean, there's a huge focus on STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, and math. But then they added the A, which is the arts, and the R, which is the research. So it all kind of, comes together. And I'm also reminded of a wonderful Egyptian American pathologist who also was the chair of this organization a few years ago, Dr. Muhammad Kamal. He's a doctor, but he and I worked on an exhibit where he takes some of his cells in his pathology lab and turns it into art. And it was just a fascinating exhibit that we both worked together, and we had a wonderful panel discussion. And it speaks exactly about what you're talking about. Like, everything is just so interconnected, and you don't have to be one thing or the other. Like, my daughter asks me that question all the time. I mean, she's definitely passionate about science, but also her heart is in ballet and dance. And I say, you don't have to be one thing or the other. You could be both. That's one thing I've been encouraging people, and we're going into, I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and one of them that I follow is The Future of Work. And the future is work is about that interdisciplinarity and being everything, and you could just mix a lot of things, and that's where, the future is lying. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. Okay, speaking about podcasts, one of the podcasts that I follow is called Hello Monday, and it's posted by LinkedIn. And one episode featured Elizabeth Gilbert, and I'm sure you're aware of her. She's the author of the amazing book Eat, Pray, and Love. She talks about when to choose a job over a career and the difference between one's job, career, and vocation. And my question to you is, what do you think the difference between following a career and following a passion, and were you trying to do that when you chose the arts? And how can one make a passion like yourself a career? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the struggle with being an actor or creating a career out of your passion is that there's something called the passion gap, where you're willing to do free work or you're willing to do whatever just to pursue your passion, right? But I think what's really important about pursuing your passion and creating it into a career, that transition is what makes it really important. And that requires boundaries. And so, thankfully now I am working with a team that's able to help me create those boundaries. For example, what is a concert worth, and am I going to get paid on time? Like, little things like that, because I still have to survive, right? But and that's just through trial and error, I think, because it's not a 9 to 5 job. Being an artist is being a freelancer, and you're sometimes a year goes by, like, for example, during the pandemic, where I didn't have much creative work and I had to go find a job that wasn't my passion. In acting, I think I was working, part-time as a studio instructor or as a voice teacher. Um, And so, constantly being flexible, realizing that you're a freelancer and realizing that this is your career, and creating like really important boundaries around that, I think can help actually move you forward versus taking free work, um, not acknowledging the worth of your art and the meaning of your art, because artists just want to share, and that's the most beautiful thing about what we do, is that we just want to share our gifts with the world, but we also have to survive.
Yes,
you know
yes, yes.
and so that takes a lot of trial and error, and it takes a lot of learning, and I'm learning from the best. I have a great team now that I'm surrounded with, my manager, my agent, thankfully. But when I was a younger actor, um, I had to advocate for myself. And so find out what that means for you. What does advocating for yourself mean to you? And and then move forward.
That's a wonderful. I know a lot of people struggle with that, but as you said, trial and error, and we have to all go through life and learn from mistakes and go back to the starting point. And I'm excited things are working well now with you. So shifting from passion to the buzzword of the town, the talk of the town, whether it's in academia, theater, acting, Fortune 500 companies, I call it the D word, diversity. And I'm sure you're in those conversations, and I am too. I mean, I became the coordinator for DEI at the library at Chapman University, not because of my background, but really because of my work on diversity for the last 10 years. I give speeches all the time, but I recently was talking a lot about reimagining diversity because, sometimes it's kind of like an overkill. We talk about it all the time. But I want you to spend some time, if you can, I want to hear your take on that, especially when diversity seems to be the one thing people are talking about, yet it can also backbite us, right? Even as minorities, women of color, Egyptians, Muslims, whatever people define us as. Actually, maybe a year ago, someone came to me and said, I wish I was a Muslim woman these days. And, that's kind of offensive. So what is your take on that? And how do you personally define diversity?
I'm so glad that we are having the conversation about diversity now, but I agree that it can backfire.
Mhm.
Diversity to me in its golden form is everyone holding equal weight and having a team of different backgrounds, culture, race, ethnicities, sexual identities, all of the things working together for a common cause in the workplace, and all of the opinions holding equal weight. Like that's what I envision a perfect diverse workplace. Where the struggle becomes, at least in my industry, is when tokenism comes into play. And I've experienced it not from my company. I want to make that very clear, but I think from the outside world looking in, um, you know, going trying to move through this industry as an Arab woman, I've been told, oh, Aladdin must be like your dream role. Like being Princess Jasmine must be everything you imagine, you'd want to tell. And for me, no, not at all.
Right,
I,
like your
I
passion about
actually,
things.
I don't see myself being represented as an Arab woman in Aladdin. Um, I actually see myself very much being represented as an Arab woman as Eliza Doolittle.
Mhm.
And that's because Eliza is ambitious, she's stubborn, determined, she's strong and powerful, and just one of the most incredible women that I've ever been able to portray. And that's because, those are the women that I was surrounded with when I was growing up. That's what I see as an Arab woman, and not necessarily a harem or a powerless, creature almost. Um, and so, when I stepped into the role as Eliza, and then there was a lot of talk about diversity and first Arab woman and all of the things. It's interesting because the question that I got is, how is Eliza, like, what of your Egyptian roots is informed in Eliza? And for me, actually, Eliza's background is informed in Eliza.
Mhm.
And when we start cornering um, diversity and expecting these people to, like for myself, for example, to teach about diversity, that's when it gets a little bit like tricky. you
Right,
know, I'm just an actor trying to tell this story. I'm not
right,
trying to push any sort of like initiative of an Egyptian narrative because it's not, or an
right.
Arab narrative because it's not. It's about a British woman.
Mhm.
It's just incredible for people in the audience to be able to see an Egyptian woman playing a British role. because that's very, very rare. And
Mhm.
now we're moving in the direction where finally, we're seeing more diversity on stage, and our cast is so beautifully represented. We have people from all over the world. It's just stunning. Um, so yeah, I think it can get tricky, but I'm glad that we're having the conversation, and I'm glad that we're failing at it, to be quite honest, because that helps us navigate it better and have these hard conversations. It's better to have conversation than none at all.
I agree with you. I mean, diversity as I see it, I mean, sometimes is a very messy conversation, especially when you see a lot of minorities, taking the initiative. But I also see a lot of initiative from non-minority communities, and organizations that are not led by minorities that are really, as I see it, sometimes very, very authentic. But the only way I see diversity initiatives successful is when they're collective, when it's collective action. In fact, I'm writing, again, going back to being a librarian, I'm writing a peer-reviewed journal article about diversity as a collective action. And that's
Mm,
only way I can see diversity, hopefully, in the long term, successful. And hopefully one day we don't need to talk about it, right? I mean, I know Morgan Freeman maybe 10 years ago, plus someone was asking him about Black History Month, and he got really mad. And I think it was as a white host, and he said, would you like to see a white history month? And the guy was like, no, I mean, I don't think we have one. And Morgan Freeman was advocating to stop talking about diversity and race in general, and kind of just treat me for who I am. We don't have to identify each other. I love the fact that you are the first Egyptian Arab woman or woman of color, as sometimes people call you, and me too, to be playing Eliza Doolittle. But I would love for us not to be identified anymore, as you said, just to see you as Shereen Ahmed and see me as Nawar, and that's it. See me for who I am. I'm here because I'm capable. I'm here because I worked so hard. I'm here because I spent years and years educating myself about that topic, not because I'm Muslim, not because I'm Egyptian. I'm here
right.
because of who I am. But as you said, I'm still glad that we're opening these conversations in our own communities, but also outside. So definitely wishing you the best of luck. Just also echoing what we were saying about changing the narrative. 10 years ago, I started a social media campaign, hashtag change the narrative. And I love that you are doing that as well as part of your work in the theater. So do you happen to have any questions that are always asked to you? What kind of stereotypes are you breaking? As you can imagine, I get asked questions all the time. I mean, definitely now way less than before, because there's a lot of wonderful people doing this work as well. And because of the nature that the work that I've been doing, definitely people kind of got to know that I'm a normal person, right? But what kind of questions are you asked, and what stereotypes were you breaking?
Well, definitely I get asked a lot about how my background informs Eliza. And as I said earlier, as an actor, it shouldn't, and it doesn't. It's truly about the character that I'm portraying in that play or that show or that movie. Um, and as far as stereotypes that I'm breaking, I think I am saying no to the stereotypes of what an Arab woman looks like on TV, um, because we are so capable of being represented in so many better, more faceted, dimensional ways than we are.
Right.
And there aren't many Arab stories anyway in the film, TV, musical theater world. And so when those roles come to me, it's really, really important that I don't push a narrative that is harmful in any way. And, right now, what is so incredible actually about what I do is that we tell stories and we prompt conversation. And so if the conversation is going to move us forward, I want to be a part of that show or that project or that movie. If it's moving us backwards, pass. And, right now, I think, the issue that I have with Aladdin or with I don't know, most of the roles that I've seen of Arab women in particular is that they're either powerless
Mhm.
or over sexualized. And those are neither stereotypes that I know of in my world and the
Yeah,
women
it's like,
that
where are
I
these
know.
women?
Right. Who are these women?
Yeah,
Exactly. It's like a different gaze of
right.
what an imagined Arab woman would be. And I know I'm certainly not like that, and neither are most of the women that I know of. And we're faceted, educated, strong women. And why not tell a story um, that's outside of our race, ethnicity, religion? You know, it doesn't have to always be circled around, okay, it's about an Arab woman, so therefore we must lean so hard into the Arab narrative. You know, I mean, I know plenty of Arab Americans in particular who are Arab and American, and they live a normal life that
Just,
isn't
yeah.
heavily informed by either. And it's just, you know, what about a lawyer, a
Mhm.
really strong lawyer who happens to be Arab? Like, I would love to play a role like that.
Mhm.
Um, and so, you know, I'm trying to break the narrative of those harmful stereotypes and just trying to push us forward and broaden our horizons of what it means to be Arab right now.
Yeah. I think what's going to happen, Shereen, it will take a generation after the other to increase the pipeline. Like when people ask me, like, why aren't there any librarians that are of an Egyptian or Arab background? And I say, a lot of people, like when people are always fascinating, like an academic librarian, what does that mean? It's like, oh, I had to go through school and I had to get a master's. And not a
Right.
lot of people understand that. I'm not saying there aren't at all, but there isn't many, right? So just like yourself, we need to increase the pipeline. So we can't go out and complain about the lack of diversity and people not understanding us without really having our own stories. I mean, that also reminds me of Rami, the show. If you got a chance, it's on Hulu. I mean, and I love what he did. I wrote an article about why I fell in love with that show because it's very first it's very controversial and I love controversial discussions and it's kind of breaking that stereotype even within our community of Egyptians and Muslims and Arabs, right? You don't have to behave, we're human beings, we can actually make mistakes. So you're breaking the stereotype within the community. And you know, I personally also get you know, people kind of rolling their eyes. I'm very involved in interfaith discussions. So when I'm giving a talk at a Jewish temple, for example, people are like, what? that doesn't make sense, but it really does, right? You don't have to live a certain life, you know, because of those stereotypes. So I just love this conversation. I love we're on
I
this.
would love to see like the Friends sitcom be rebooted with Arab friends just
Let's
living in
do
New York City and, you know, trying to survive life because that's what it is. You know, we're normal
We're,
people.
yeah, we're starting the conversation, Shereen, and that's what I love, and that's why I'm very grateful for the Egyptian American organization for giving me the lead this year and also supporting me. I got involved, you know, in the EAO 5 or 6 years ago, and I've been kind of trying to kind of change the way we do things because of kind of bridging the gap, not necessarily because I want to stop what, you know, the people that came before us doing, but kind of just bring us all together and kind of try to learn from each other and tell those stories and rethink the way that we are telling our stories ourselves as well. So we will get there. I know we will. So from diversity, I want to shift a little bit and talk about women in general. And since we're celebrating Women History Month, and I see that things are definitely changing, maybe slower than we would like, but definitely changing. Hannah Rosen, if you're aware of her work, she shared really data, you know, 10, maybe 10 even years ago, so that data is not even up to date. Her numbers were impressive, hopeful about the rise of women in general. So by way of comparison, do you see any challenges you face in your career as an actress, specifically because you are a woman? Not because you're an Arab woman, but just because you're a woman.
Um, you know, I think as you said it, everything's slowly changing in the industry, which is incredible. As far as being an actor, I, you know, I would really love more storylines that don't have to do with a woman's romantic life or a woman's motherhood. I think I would love to see more career-oriented storylines, more multi-dimensional storylines, especially in the theater. Um, and as far as our industry as a whole, I'd love to see more women in the producing ranks or in the
Mhm.
directing ranks or the writers in the writers room, because those are the people who create the story. I'm the last person to see the story before it's on a stage. I just get given a script that has been worked on for years by that point, and I have a month or two to work on it, and then it's put on the stage. So it really starts from the beginning.
Mhm.
And that's something that I'm definitely interested in and curious in producing and putting money towards stories that matter and that can make a difference and start the conversation and prompt the conversation. And when I refer to stories that prompt conversations, I don't necessarily mean highly intellectual stories, because it's really important to have those TV shows or those musicals that just bring joy as well
Yes.
and are
Yes.
comical and funny and
Right.
familial and normal. That's also incredibly important. But I'd like to see more female driven storylines. We're seeing a little bit more now,
Definitely.
um, but I would love to see more.
Yeah, I love what Netflix, for example, is doing. I've been seeing just incredible work in general, in reinventing or inventing Anna. I just finished that show, kind of like, even though she's a con, but I still love the story.
Yeah.
The way it was told, the producer and the writer, I believe, is a woman. I mean, there's just a lot of, female-led, really big roles that have been taken. I mean, I recently also watched The Maid, and I feel like even though it's a harsh story, but it's still talks about a woman and from a different perspective and not necessarily sexualized or romanticized. But again, going back to building the pipeline, and we need people to be believing in all of this and believing in building the talent and putting money and scholarships perhaps towards Egyptian Americans or Arab Americans. And I'm aware of some funding agencies and also scholarships that are available specifically for students that are pursuing arts or maybe human rights and all those, not non-science, which I definitely appreciate. So we're seeing a little bit of that, not as fast as we would like, but this is the only way we can get there. So hopefully we can continue to kind of raise by these discussions. We're just bringing awareness of how these stories can be brought to life for sure.
But it's also incredibly important that mentorship is very important too. And if for example you're a man watching this, it's about partnering with a woman or partnering with a person of color or someone different from you, so that we bridge that gap, because it's all about, like you said earlier, the collective aspect of it and working together. It's not about tokenism and this kind of world. I think it's just about reaching out, and if you need an assistant, reach out to someone who's different
Right.
from you. And it only diversifies your work, and the
Mhm.
the work gets better because it's like a melting pot at that point with so many different ideas. So it just helps.
And it really does. And again, I'm not just saying this because I'm passionate about diversity and as a person of a minority background. It is also proven by research. When I gave my TED talk in 2015 in Germany, I had to kind of back up my diversity work with some research. And I found just a ton of peer-reviewed articles that proves how diversity improves, teams, work, academic environments, diversity in the arts and the acting industry. So, and again, I want to just acknowledge the fact that there are a lot of organizations and people that have been giving the platform to people of all backgrounds. As you said, just that platform, and it's up to the person to really take it to the next step. And looks like you're taking it to the next step. Well, yeah, I love that you were giving advices to women, but perhaps you can just say one advice to women these days, especially as someone that was recently recognized as one of the 40 under 40 accomplished Arab Americans in the United States by the Arab American Foundation. Congratulations on that. So I know it's hard to say one advice, but perhaps out of, years of experience, you can just give women in general, not necessarily just in the acting industry or the theater industry, uh, an advice.
Um, I was thinking about this question, and I think the best piece of advice that I can also give to myself is that, to trust our instincts, because we as women have really incredible instincts, but it's almost like they're beaten out of us, or our need to please others, or our need to, you know, make the best decision depending on all of the weigh-ins that we've, you know, reached out to. Trust your instinct and trust your gut, and know that it's right. And if it's not right, it's so easy to pivot. I think we put so much weight on making the right decision that we don't allow ourselves to really feel the joy of failure,
Mhm.
because there's so much opportunity when we fail. I don't think it's as negative as a term as we have coined it to be. It's just a pivoting into the next direction, and you get more information that way. So follow your instinct and allow yourself to be messy and make mistakes.
I love that. Follow your heart. I love that so much. I want to shift this conversation a little bit to Egypt, since we are the Egyptian American organization, and I know you personally have a special relationship with Egypt as an Egyptian American. So I want you to talk to us about, where is Egypt in your life? Do you go visit? Did you go visit as a kid? And what is your favorite Egyptian meal? And do you cook Egyptian food? All those cool questions that people are always kind of eager to know about.
Yeah, I have a lot of family in Egypt. My dad's from Alexandria, Egypt.
Mhm. Oh,
So
same here.
oh yes. Oh,
Yes.
so beautiful, so beautiful. I haven't been in years. Um, but we were planning to actually go during the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened. But I've been a few times, and it's interesting because over the pandemic, I was at home with my family, and my dad cooked Egyptian food every night for us, every night.
Nice.
And because we couldn't go out to restaurants or have takeout or any, I felt like something deep inside of me, like my roots, my DNA, the ancestry of where we come from, is just so much more deeply rooted inside of me and inside of, the decisions that I make every day, the people that I talk to, the people I reach out to, and my purpose, and my purpose. And it's every time I go out on stage, I think about, the people that I'm taking with me and the community that I'm taking with me. Because, wow, the love that I get from the Egyptian community and the support that I get from the Egyptian community, it's beyond. And I hope to get back soon, um, and be able to discover more.
What's your favorite meal? If you have a favorite
Oh
meal.
my
It's
gosh,
hard to pick, I know.
it's really hard to pick. I love
I do-
mashti.
Nice.
I love mashti.
Who doesn't?
Right. My dad makes a incredible baklava. I mean,
Nice.
so
Yeah,
with the rose water, it must have rose water.
right.
The rice pudding with rose water, of course. Um, I mean,
Those
it's
are
so
great.
there's so many.
It is, yeah. My daughter, out of all the food, I mean, she travels the world, but her favorite meal is bamia, okra. So
Oh,
yeah,
it's comfort food.
it's definitely, and I'm glad that we all continue. I mean, and one of the lines that I used in my TED talk was like, embed yourself in the society you're living in, but just don't lose that identity, because it's just so beautiful. It grounds you. It finds your people. That doesn't mean that you can go out there and do all kinds of things, but when you have that, it definitely is the core. And as you said, on stage or anywhere, it kind of just grounds you. And I love how we all know each other. We have that. I just came back from Texas yesterday, and in the airport, there's a huge heart with flags from all over the world. And I was just looking for the Egyptian flag, and it happens to be someone very kind, had the Egyptian flag. I think he bought it or something and wrote to it, "Blessed be my people, the Egyptian people." And it just warmed my heart. You just feel that connection. We definitely, I mean, for me, I love all countries, and I feel like every country, every culture has its own special, treat, and I love visiting. But we could be biased and say that we love our
You know what I love about us is that we are passionate, proud people,
yeah,
and it reflects in our food, it reflects in our music, and the food takes so long to make because
right,
of all the love and the passion that we put into it and for the people who are going to eat it. And the music that
definitely.
we have is incredibly joyful and everyone dances together, or it's incredibly sorrowful and just
Right.
full of strings. And I love that. I love it.
Do you have any favorite Egyptian singer, man or woman or both?
Well, I grew up very much on Nancy Agram. I mean,
Oh, nice.
that was when she like
Right, right.
exploded.
Yeah,
And
she's not Egyptian, but I love her too.
oh yes, yes.
Yeah,
But I grew up a lot on her because she was becoming like a pop star
sure.
almost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's great.
Yeah, yeah, she's great.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that you're listening to Arabic music. We all love Arabic music. Uh,
Yeah.
okay. So again, we're still in the Egypt conversation. And as I was telling you, even before we started the interview, I've personally recently seen a lot of Egyptian Americans go back to Egypt and do very well in the acting industry. I was, sharing information with you about Amir al-Masri. He grew up in London. There's Mina Masood, who's doing very well. I think he's signed or he's signing his first show in Egypt. Adam Sharkawi, who was actually acting with Mona Zaki last Ramadan. So my question to you is, are you open to this?
Yes.
Mhm.
It would be a dream come true for me to work in Egypt and I mean, the love that I felt from this community in Egypt, like I just want to share share it back, and give it back and um, be able to be with my people, performing for my people. It would truly bring so much joy to me.
I'm so glad you're open to this because I think also, seeing the shift, I watch closely what's happening in Egypt in all industries, but definitely because of my passion towards the arts this year specifically, I'm just watching the shift and I'm watching the collaborative action and the collaboration between artists from all over the world. When I was there in October, I visited this exhibit called Forever 21. They were highlighting about maybe 15 artists from all over the world that do sculpture. And those sculptures actually were installed in front of the pyramids. And every single artist was someone, maybe there were two from Egypt, but others from pretty much every continent. And it was just so amazing to see people coming over to Egypt and sharing their art. And I see it I see it pretty much in all industries. So I know it will happen. And I know I will personally do all what I can to kind of make that connection. And I know a lot of people already are aware of your work. I've seen some interviews about you on Isle FM, on Egyptian Streets and others. And I know people are just, getting excited. And I know you're just busy with your tour and soon enough, you'll be able to get there and maybe have some interviews and get introduced to people. On
Yes, fingers.
note too, on that same note too, I'd like to maybe talk to you about I was listening to another interview yesterday and you said something that kind of just, wow, that would be great. That you'd like to originate something from scratch instead of just going to and auditioning to specific roles. And this is super cool because a close friend of mine, and she's gonna, hate me for saying this out loud. I'm not gonna say her name, but she knows herself. We started brainstorming an idea about a show that perhaps can maybe become a play that tells the story of Egyptian American women immigrants in when they come over to the US, and maybe we can work on something, or I don't know. Well, like what ideas do you have and where are you on that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so most of my career was really, stepping into an already fully formed role. What I loved about Eliza, though, for me is that Bart Shear, our incredible director, let me have free reign over her, and I was able to discover and really build her from the ground up. Um, but I would love to be a part of that creative process of creating a character and therefore creating the story and the arc. And what is the conversation and the purpose of this character right now? Like, why do audiences need to know her? And I want to be a part of those conversations from the beginning. And I imagine something completely radical and different from anything I've ever done, like a spy or like a police
Yes.
officer or the president or something really full of power and strength, but also requiring so much vulnerability. And because with those characters, I feel like, we only see the strength in them. We only see the James Bonds, and we don't see the vulnerability needs that is needed in order to go into those kind of roles. And so, yeah, I would love to originate a storyline that is completely radical and different and fun.
Let's do that. I love
Let's
radical,
do that.
radical in a good way, right? Don't put it radical next to a Muslim woman, but
Yeah,
radical,
right. No, 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 no.
radical in the really good, cool meaning of radical. And I
Yes.
the idea that my friend and I is really radical, and I was kind of talking to a couple of people about it. It's like, yeah, that we've never seen even on the Egyptian screen something like this. So perhaps you and I and my friend can start talking, and you never know. You
Yes.
open a door, and perhaps that could be a show. And we're seeing, audiences even again on Netflix. I'm sure you were following. I'm not sure if you saw the show, The Squid Games, as brutal and aggressive as it is, but it's a Korean show, right? I mean, also there's another French show. I can't even remember it now. That's over Netflix and more. So we're seeing a lot of shows that are not on Netflix that have had extremely international success. And let's do this, right? Let's do this.
Yeah.
We're meant to meet today, and we're thankful for the Egyptian American organization and for the platform. And you never know where things are going to go. So definitely a great idea. So I think we're about we're almost a minute away from the end of this amazing interview. But final words for you.
I think, we've had quite a challenging time recently, but we're coming to the end of the tunnel. We can see the light now, and I think we all just have to come together and celebrate the pain and the growth that we have all been through, because it was not easy. And to be able to celebrate each other through the tough times is something that is completely necessary and completely valid. So let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Shereen, it's been a pleasure really, getting to know you, interview with you. I'm just so excited that we have a lot in common, and there's just a lot, like someone in our community that has your kind of talent. You're breaking those taboos and stereotypes, and you're just Eliza Doolittle. And I'm sorry I didn't make it to your show, but I promise you I will. My daughter's in love with musical theater, and there's a lot of us, actually, the board members of the Egyptian American organization. All of them are really just thanking you for being part of this interview. And I want to thank them for helping me out organize this event. As I mentioned, this will be live on Saturday, March 12th. And we're just excited for the whole community to listen to you and know your story.
Yay, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.